Efed Podcast, the podcast exploring our fantasy wrestling hobby, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real. I'm your host, Mikey Unlikely, and I'd like to thank you for joining us here on the Atomic Dropcast Network. Welcome one, welcome all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 48 of the Efed Podcast. Today we've got a great guest. We've got Brian on the show. He's the handler of Brian Ford. You very well may know him from Twitter. He's got quite the following over there. Otherwise, we've also got a great question of the week, and the Efed Spotlight is back again this week. It's been hot, it's been rocking. Let's keep it rolling, baby. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to check us out on the Twitter machine, Twitter at the Efed Podcast. That's where you can interact with the show. It's the best place to get a hold of us on a quickly basis. Yeah, that's a word. Hit us up on the Twitter. Hit us up in the Discord. That link is in the Twitter profile. Again, that's twitter.com/the Efed Podcast. Click on that Discord link. You can hop right into our own little Efed community. Over 100 handlers, every side of the game, from RP to Angle to Caw to everything in between. Excited to have everybody in there. It's a great little community. Guys, don't forget to check out EWTees.com. That's Brian and I's other side project, EFedTees.com, where you can get a customized t-shirt for your wrestler, your tag team, your stable, your fed, whatever. We've got a lot of fun shirts over there and a lot of serious ones too, and now we have hoodies. It is hoodie season, and now you can get yours customized at EFedTees.com. Guys, don't forget the Patreon. I know the podcast is a free show, and we appreciate each and every one of your listens on a weekly basis. We've got a great audience base. But if you guys want to support the show, help us out a little bit, you can head on over to patreon.com/Efed Podcast. For as little as $3 a month, you can support the show. We would greatly appreciate your consideration. All right, guys, let's get rolling. Brian Ford interview coming up, question of the week coming up. But first, let's get to our sponsors. Please support these guys. They are back in the show and helping us out each and every week. Get with them, check out their fed, check out their product, and see if it's a good fit for you.
Occupy Pro Wrestling, putting the smart back into smart mark since 2012 as we grapple with design and media services for wrestlers, promotions, and podcasters. We strive to enjoy pro wrestling in our community and podcast, centered around interviews with wrestlers and fans alike. If you like what you see and hear, check out the central hub for everything we're doing and the latest from our site partners over at OccupyProWrestling.com.
All right, guys, the Efed Podcast is very happy to announce its brand new partnership over on Facebook with the Social Media Wrestling Association. The Social Media Wrestling Association, along with its 16,000 member strong influence page known as Generational Wrestling Society, has proven to be the true revolutionary Efed company of Facebook. The SWA welcomes written, video, and audio promos for its talent, as well as results provided in live 2K audio commentary and written results. The SWA is more than just an Efed. With GWS, all areas of the wrestling community are covered. From belt collectors, wrestling news, trivia, and podcasts, and Efeds. Check them out on Facebook at Social Media Wrestling Association and Generational Wrestling Society. You can give a search for both. Once you join both, you'll be glad to become associated with the society. And we're going to be posting our show on Facebook exclusively on the SWA and GWS sites. And we're very happy to have announced this partnership with the SWA, and you can hear about it here every week. So guys, go check them out. Social Media Wrestling Association on Facebook.
Defiance, an Angle Fed boasting 8 years of continuous fantasy wrestling. Defiance offers opportunities for original characters, micros, a standalone website utilizing Backstage 3 script, and a forum hosted on the long-running FWrestling.com, as well as a roster full of some of the most experienced writers in the game. Come see for yourself at DefianceWrestling.com. That's DefianceWrestling.com.
Hey guys, are you digging this podcast? Well, we really appreciate it. I'd also appreciate it if you check out my other podcast. The Atomic Dropcast is a look back at the wrestling of yesteryear through adult eyes. We watch the wrestling that we watched as kids, as adults, with a couple of beers in our hands. It's a great time. Check it out over at AtomicDropcast.com. You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
OCW Fed is a hybrid pro wrestling eFed that combines elements of roleplay and competitive play using the WWE 2K franchise. Whether you're on PlayStation or Xbox, OCW Fed is a creative outlet for gamers and pro wrestling fans alike. With over 16 years experience producing weekly content and live Twitch events, OCW Fed has a thriving community with handlers from all over the world. If this sounds like your cup of tea, come check us out at OCWFed.com, OCW Fed TV on YouTube, and OCW Fed on Twitch. It's like D&D for wrestling nerds.
Hey everybody, it's Mikey. No, we're not back to the show just yet. First, I want to tell you about my Patreon. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh no, am I going to have to pay for the podcast? No. The answer is emphatically no. The show has been and forever will be free. No, Brunk, you will not have to pay for the podcast. However, we have been asked by a handful of people how they can help support the show. And we've also been asked, mostly by Fuzz, why we didn't have a Patreon yet. And I quote, "You stupid I can't believe you don't have a Patreon. I will hurt you if you don't take my money now." End quote. That was Fuzz. He's a scary dude. So with that in mind, you can find us at patreon.com/efedpodcast. Contributions start as low as $3 a month. Thank you very much for your consideration. Please get Fuzz off our backs. The eFed question of the week is brought to you by the EWC. The Extreme Wrestling Corporation is the game's longest-running roleplay eFed, having been established in 1997. With over 100 active roleplayers across 4 unique brands, the EWC offers opt-in booking on all of its bi-weekly shows. It's home to Stranglemania and the 4-day wrestling festival known as WrestleFest. The EWC is built on its welcoming community with zero bias and no drama. All styles are welcome. Come check out the EWC today at EWC4life.com. That's EWC, the number 4, life.com. And this week's eFed podcast question of the week: what type of characters is there not enough of in EW, and which type is too common? Over on the Twitter side of things, we got answers from Atara Themis. Too much, self-proclaimed manipulators. Too little, furries. Ooh, that's weird. At Michael43008959. Not enough true faces. I'll admit it. It's a hard character to get a handle on. But when someone does, it can be really great and refreshing to read. I don't think any particular character type is overdone, but my exposure is pretty limited. Fair enough. Good answer. At Real AJ Adams, there is not enough Lucha Libre type people. I could not agree more. Another good answer. At Titanus Sam, there are definitely not enough villains. Literal, legit monster heels that do whatever they want, whatever it takes to acquire victory and send messages. Shout out goes to Stitches for being one of the few and best examples of this type of character. Too many? Misogynists. Up next is Sean Warstein. Too many, the spooky character. You know what I'm talking about. The gratuitous violence in their promos, boundary pushing for the sake of pushing it, and horror porn. I'll immediately pull out of working with them. Just not for me. Too little, lucha, and true faces. And I think that's all we got on the Twitter side, so let's check over on the Discord side of things. Up first, we got Warren at MDG. 7 foot tall, 350 plus pound wrestlers who do the 450 splash. At Queen of Simps, need more nice people, and too many grimdark loners. I sat in a room with a single light bulb hanging from a chain on the ceiling. Nobody cares about me. You, the reader, should care about me though, even though I'm a repellent asshole. Yawn. Grimdark is fun with friends. Great answer. Really enjoyed that one. Up next, we got Seth is Burns. Too many badasses that think they're too cool to cut promos where everyone else does. So they cut them by a chain link fence, a garage, a dank basement, or whatever. They no-sell storylines or wrestling moves to make their own characters look cool. You don't. Weaknesses help characters get over as something to build them more effectively. Use your weakness. Need more underdog babyface characters, please. Thanks, Seth. At Dr. Benzina, they need more real baby faces because they're hard to write, so most people just don't. Need less men who write women, yet seem to have never actually spoken to one or forget that they are, in fact, people. Up next is Megan, 5BW owner. We need more conservative characters that could get played right. Nowadays, I think people are afraid to play them with the current climate of today's society. We need less people who post accounts with adult content. We don't need to see someone getting it in the butt or their mouth half the time. Create another account for that stuff. Keep it out of e-wrestling. Couldn't agree more. Thanks, Meg. At Nice Guy Cassidy, I want more heels who actually suck in the ring. Don't do badass moves. Cower and cheat and mug. I want more Honky Tonk Man. He is the world's greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. Up next is Kevin R. I'm a fan of heels that don't have to cheat, but do because it makes things easier. Always gives you an out when you turn face, and you're just as successful. But you have to work harder at it. Up next is Rick. Need more non-Twitter lesbians. Need less Twitter lesbians. Okay, good one. At eWrestling's Sweetest Boy, not enough fun characters having a killer time, and too much serious characters having a bad time. Almost said serial characters. At Just Jeremy Cundiff, characters with flaws. Everyone wants to write superhuman, indestructible gimmicks who can get a shot at the genitals with an assault rifle and kick out at two. Awesome, guys. Thanks for participating in this week's EFED Podcast Question of the Week. This was a lot of fun. Looking forward to next week's EFED Podcast Question of the Week, which is already pinned to the top of the Twitter profile over at the EFED Podcast. It is a poll this week, so that'll be an interesting one to see. Go on over, get your vote in, add a comment if you'd like. We're going to talk about it next week on the show.
Hey, my name's Hass. I'm the handler of Game in Ohio. You listen to the EFED podcast. Live it up. It's fantastic. See you.
All right, it's time for the EFED Spotlight, a segment where we highlight a Fed out there and take a look at what they're all about and give you the opportunity to decide if you want to check them out. Today on the show, we've got Project Honor. They are a hybrid Fed, and you can find them at projecthonor.forummotion.com, or you can find them on Twitter at ProjectHonor20. They are a hybrid Fed with bi-weekly shows. The pay-per-views come every other month. You write one role play per show, and they are judged by 3 judges, and they have storylines that they rely heavily on, but they do make alternative paths depending on the winner. They do have 3 active championships right now. The Grand Championship, that's the big one, the X Factor Championship, and the Warrior Rising Championship. They have about 24 people on the roster, and what they believe sets them apart is the creative of not only their staff, but of their roster as well. Their match writing and results setup is different than most, and they are also a very graphics-heavy Fed, and they do match picks for every show, along with all over the forum. You guys can check them out at projecthonor.forummotion.com, or again on Twitter at ProjectHonor20. Top 10 wrestlers that they have in no specific order: Dickie Watson, Colton Saint, Kimberly Chase, Zane, Myosian, Ryan Young, Jacob Steele, Red Riot, Casey Winterborn, and Eliza Dresden. You guys need to check them out if you're looking for a good hybrid Fed. They're currently taking applications and looking for someone like you. All right, guys, welcome back to another edition of the EFED Podcast interview series. This week, we're joined by Brian, the handler of Brian Ford and Harry Hampton. Brian, thanks so much for taking the time to join us tonight.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. Love the show. Love the work. Love it all.
Appreciate that very much. I've been following you on Twitter for a long time. It's been a fun follow. You're a hell of a shit talker.
Glad to have it. Look, listen. So, I mean, before we even get into the questions, Brian Ford, the character, was face for so long, and I was so convinced had a curse because every time I wanted to go heel, the Fed I was in either closed down or something happened, and it's like every time I started over again, I always started as face because I wanted to transition into a heel. and then finally got the opportunity to. And I've been just having a ball ever since.
Just taking advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'll never pride myself on being the best heel because there's a lot of way better talkers on Twitter than I am. I'm shit at rebuttals, but I will tell you are shit, and I will mean it. So there you go.
You come out strong anyway.
Yeah, you got to come out strong, even if you don't finish strong, you know?
Well, good, man. You talk about how you first found professional wrestling. When did you become a fan, and what got you into it?
Been a fan since I was probably like 6 or 5 even. My entire family in Texas, they're wrestling fanatics.
Nice.
I was told I have an uncle in the Indies. I don't know his name. I won't lie. It at least escapes me. I don't know his wrestling name. I know his actual name. But so I've been attracted to it ever since. And I mean, now when I discovered, you can do this online as like a game, I was hooked. Like, I immediately was on it. And I mean,
when you first got into wrestling, who were some of the wrestlers that you were like, that were your favorites at first? Like, who caught your eye at 6 or 7 years old?
Off bat, you have to go with The Rock. Like, I don't know a single wrestling fan who doesn't know who The Rock is.
Right.
To some extent. Like, I think for me, he was to me what, like Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant were to people of that generation. So to see like this guy who's just like carries himself so well, has this confidence, whether or not he's liked or hated, like commands your attention.
He's like a superhero.
Right. Like, and another guy, speaking of superhero, the Hurricane, like The Rock Hurricane, I will drown with my ship when I say that is probably one of my favorite matches of all time.
I love that angle. That whole angle with them talking shit back and forth in the Rock's locker room and talking about a little weenie on the Rock.
Yeah.
That was some funny shit.
Their actual match was fire because The Rock puts on the cape and starts pretending he can fly around. Like, if you introduce someone to professional wrestling, I highly suggest you show them that match just so you can see the silliness of it. And then, of course, you can get into like the nitty-gritty stuff and the realistic aspect of it. And
that's a great introduction. That was a super fun angle. Oh, man. One of my favorites growing up, too. I was a teenager at the time, even, and I thought it was the most hilarious thing.
Oh, my God.
So great shout there. What about now? Are you still a wrestling fan now, or are you just into e-fetting?
Definitely still a wrestling fan. I'm even training professionally to be a wrestler.
Nice.
We got shut down due to the situation with COVID and everything.
Yeah.
Which sucks because I was just on my rise. Like, I had gotten the manager gig and I had my own stable and literally we were taking off, and then it's like, can't do that anymore because of COVID. So maybe next. So it literally was the worst timing, but nonetheless, still grinding it out and still very much a fan. NXT is great. AEW is great. ROH has its moments,
Who are some of your favorite wrestlers now, though?
Right now, just because I've had the pleasure of meeting and training with some of these guys too. Peter Avalon, Scorpio Sky. Let's see, if we're going WWE, you gotta take in like Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, the list goes on. Big E, Kofi, of course, like the entire New Day are amazing athletes to me. It's just, there's so many people with so little time, dude. Like,
wrestling's so big right now. It's crazy.
Honestly, I think I can honestly say it's probably the biggest it has been for quite some time.
Since the time you were watching The Rock, basically.
Yeah, especially if you're going into this whole like AEW versus WWE whole, thing. It's getting intense.
It's great.
You're starting to see both companies starting to make certain moves because it's getting uneasy. And I think uneasiness provides greatness. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely. Pressure is
if you're exactly. I love being nervous, no matter what I'm doing, because it makes me want to do that much more. Much better. You know what I mean?
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how did you find the weird world of e-fedding?
Oh God. So I want to say I was like 14, 15. I'm into so many things. I'm into anime, and like I'm even nerdier than that, Power Rangers. Like I would just look up online, Naruto RPG. Stumbled upon this game called Shinobi Legends, where it's basically like you're role playing and it's text based, and I was like, okay, cool. Then next thing you know, I was like, oh, I wonder if there's like a game like this for wrestling. I looked up my wrestling game, and the first game I played it's literally called The Wrestling Game. And it's hard to explain. It has feds in it. Like, it's a feature. Like, people literally create their own like companies and stuff, and you actually sign people to like deals for like their fake virtual currency or whatever. And there's legit contracts. You can be signed as a jobber. You can be signed as a legend, a top a main eventer. Like, it was cool. Got into that. Started seeing the feds. The feds there are definitely angled, but it's a different type of angle. It's very like it's a simulation, basically. Like, they simulate the matches, and they basically just copy paste the results and then change it up at the end if they want someone to go over or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what I was doing for a long time. Made a lot of friends through it. Joined a lot of feds, and it wasn't until I want to say like 2016 where I actually joined the actual like role playing fed.
Okay.
So that's when I got my start. It's 2016, I want to say, probably 15, but have been playing like kind of dabbling in it since like 2012, 2013.
Well, you were certainly role playing in different situations, different games, but prior to e-fedding, so it was a natural transition.
Oh, definitely. It was, it had to happen at this point.
So talk about the feds that you found. You mentioned before we were talking, you got into it and you didn't know the rules, and you just went at it.
Yeah. So the first role play, like competitively role playing fed I joined is Carnage Wrestling, which I'm still a part of. Prior to that, I was doing the feds through The Wrestling Game. The first fed where Brian Ford, who at the time was going by B Ford, he got his start there in IWA, International Wrestling Association. Okay. That's where I met my closest friends to this day. I try to keep in contact with them as often as I can, but got my start there. And it's a whole different world in that type of angled fed. So when I did make the transition, I didn't know that your promos and your segments were different things. So I would literally do my entire promo, submit it, and then use the exact same thing for the segment. And they were like, that's not really a thing. And I had to get educated, dude, because I had never written like competitively. Like, this is why I usually stick to angle feds anyway. I'm such a guy where I'm just so focused on the storytelling and not like, if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose. But the fact that like, if I lose, it's because my written piece was inferior to my opponent's, kind of like, to this day, I'm still like, I wish I had won that. Like, if I just added 3 more words or used a comma, like, I would have won. Like, I've had that so many times. But, I mean, I'm definitely hooked on role playing as a fed. But now I used to have like 6 characters active in different feds, that's all wild. Role playing. And I was like burnt out because sometimes I couldn't, get my stuff in on time because I had to focus on one of Brian's matches, or I had to switch it to Harry, and then it was just like, oh crap, now I'm submitting the wrong role play in the wrong fed, and it got so exhausting. And especially during the time I was running a Fed myself, I was doing all of that and writing all the matches for my own Fed. Dude, I got burnt out.
Burnt out in no time.
Dude, I quit e-Fedding for like a couple of months because I was just like, I need to reset.
Yeah.
What do I
temper expectations?
Yeah, exactly. My eyes got bigger than my thumbs.
So you talked about you were in all these Feds, you had all these characters, you got burnout. What were some of the Feds you were? I mean, you mentioned the early ones, and you mentioned that you started with B Ford, and you mentioned you still run Brian Ford, which is also your real name.
Yep, definitely. So
you mentioned earlier you didn't know in the beginning you couldn't change your name or you couldn't use a fake name.
Right. It was just being naive. Like, I was young, so naturally, I don't know why. I thought every wrestler's name was their actual name.
It said enter name, and you're like, all right.
Right. Literally, that's what it was. Like, for a long time, I thought Undertaker and Kane were actually brothers.
I get it. I was the same way, and I don't blame you at all. I have many friends who did the same thing when they started e-Fedding, and even today they're known by their real names because it's just what they knew to do.
Exactly, and it's just, and a lot of people are smart with their names because I started realizing that a lot of people's names have like hidden meanings or they're innuendos for something or it's an insider. Like, the possibilities are endless when it comes to naming your guy.
Yep.
Like, I made a guy named Michael Win, and his whole catchphrase was "Make it a win," and I thought that shit was hilarious. So the minute I started realizing, I can have fun with these, like, that's when I started creating these names and gimmicks and everything surrounding his names. Yeah, it's super fun. Creating the guy is always.
I always had a thing for rhyming names. I don't know.
Yeah, or me, it's alliteration for sure. That's why I have Harry Hampton.
Yep.
Just rolls off the tongue.
So who are some of the characters that you were running at the time? You mentioned you had a bunch.
Yeah, okay, so get ready. All right, so first of all, there's Brian Ford, who was B Ford at the time when he was a rookie, and then just changed it to Brian Ford because that sounds way more professional. That was literally the story. A guy walked up to him and was like, B Ford sounds like a fucking kid name. And B Ford was like, well, fuck you, Brian Ford. Carry on the Ford name. Brian Ford's whole story is he's a third-generation superstar type of deal. After that, so Harry Hampton was next. Harry Hampton originally was a borrowed wrestler because the guy at the time couldn't utilize his character. So at the time, and again, this is in a different world compared to actual, like, the Angle Feds now. It'd be like, if you had to leave, you could entrust your character to someone.
Sure.
And he was like, hey, you want to use Harry Hampton for a bit? And I was like, sure. Used Harry Hampton. And then guy never returned. And I fell in love with Harry Hampton as a character because he is my most unique character. So I was like, for sure, he's mine now. After that, I created a guy named Chris Sparks, who's like Brian Ford's protege type of deal. High flying, cocky ass dude, young buck type of character. Then there's Michael Wynn. He's Make It a Win. I love that. His younger brother, Jimmy Edwards, the flawless Jimmy Edwards. And then I created probably one of my favorite characters, Ragnarok. Who's the character?
You're Ragnarok.
Yeah. That's, I used him in Carnage. He was my first, character I used with, Carnage Wrestling. And I love Ragnarok. I love his whole story, his whole being. Like, that was my favorite characters. He is very hard to play, and that's why I stopped and I had to, like, unmask him because it got to a point where I did not know where I was going with it because Ragnarok is very much Undertaker, Bray Wyatt, Boogeyman. Take every supernatural character you can think of, roll them up in a ball, and put a suicide mask from TNA on him, and that is what, like, literally, that is what happened. Then who else? I believe that's pretty much it for my characters. There's probably other, quick ones that never really saw the light of day. but those were the ones I run. But primarily I was Brian Ford, Harry Hampton, and Ragnarok. Ragnarok also was Brian Ford under the mask.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was a whole deal in Carnage, and that's when I made the heel turn because Brian Ford had went away after being attacked by. So I know I'm rambling, but it's part of the story.
No,
so
you're good, man. Keep going.
Ragnarok had a stable in Carnage called Khan, Creatures of Night, and I had two are still like my best friends. It's Brian Crucifix and Robert Zodiac. Robert Zodiac is a beast. Like, I love his work. So the story was Ragnarok had gotten like a cult following among the fans of Carnage, and they started referring to themselves as ragdolls. And,
Nice.
Yeah, it was fucking sick, bro. So at one point, Brian Ford is being like haunted by Ragnarok. Like, Ragnarok is appearing on the screen and is taunting him and stuff. And lights go out. Brian Ford gets knocked out and dragged out of the arena. Everyone's like, well, where's Brian? Brian goes missing for like a month or two in Carnage. Ragnarok comes back, basically reasserting his dominance and everything. Starts wrestling guys who are in Carnage. The Avenger, who's the superhero character, even wrestled Harry Hampton and his then best friend and tag team partner TJ Adams. And eventually Ragnarok gets unmasked. And who is it? It's Brian Ford. And, you know, instant heat, instant hate from all these different characters who Ragnarok was screwing over the course of months and close to a year. And then it was just like, well, now that I've unmasked myself, I can have fun and be a heel for the first time in Brian Ford's career.
Well, absolutely.
And that's where it just took off. And even from there, Brian Ford has evolved as a character and is probably I love Brian Ford. He's never going anywhere because of how much he has evolved, and he is myself, so I can't really go anywhere.
Well, that's great. And if you ever decide to go face again, there's so many reasons you can put a mask back on and make it like a baby face thing. True that. Good deal. So Brian Ford started in Roleplay Feds, now resides in Angle Feds. Talk about your run in mainstream wrestling.
Oh, mainstream is one of my favorite places. It's just the people there are great. Like, the storytelling is great. You have a Fed head who like is open to hearing your ideas and isn't just like, this is what I want you to do and this is what you're gonna do. Like, not super Vince McMahoning it. Like, is very much letting you have some reign. Of course, every Fed head is gonna have like a goal for you and your character and is gonna want you to go a certain way. But the fact that he kind of leaves it up to me he basically just gives me a template and lets me fill it out how I see fit. Super dope. Brian Ford came into mainstream after leaving King's Road. I think that's what it was. Had a decent run there. Brian Ford became friends with Chris Constantine Jr.
Nice.
Another good friend of mine outside of this. Also became friends with Silk. I love Silk.
Many of these guys are former guests on the show.
Yeah, they're awesome people. So making the transition over to mainstream, knowing that they were there was easy enough. You know, Brian Ford went over there, very much adopted this Hollywood, you know, I'm the star of my own show gimmick, to the point where he refers to the ring and himself as the Brian Ford Show. You know, you're just a guest in his world, basically.
Stealing that.
Yeah. But basically, you know, like, again, I love it. I felt like Rob, the Fed head, kind of saw where I was going with the character anyway. Brian Ford comes in literally a month or two since debuting on mainstream, takes the U.S. title from Chris Constantine Jr. And I was shocked. I didn't know that was happening. I was like, I just wanted to feud with Chris, because it was like, we've been tag team partners for a little bit. We've had, you know, we've been in the same stable, conglomerate a little bit. So it was like, well, let's just fucking feud. And it worked out. And then I ended up with the title, and I was like, okay, thanks for giving me responsibility now. I guess I have to try and help tell some good stories. I tried. If I failed, Rob, I'm sorry, but I tried. But yeah, so mainstream has just been, I've been on this, I love mainstream. It's definitely a place I see myself being long term. Real fun. I can't wait to work with everyone. And that's one of the rare things for me is being in a place where you want to work with every single person on the roster. Like, even if it's just a one-off match, there's so many people I want to face. I would love, like, I got to face Mariano Fernandez, that character. I had followed him forever and I had always hoped we'd have a match, and then we have one, and it's literally champion versus champion. And I was just like, what?
Awesome.
What world am I in? And it was like winner,
small world
defines titles, and I was just like, this doesn't happen to me. Like, you know what I mean? I pride myself on very much being a guy, like, whatever role you need me to do, I'll do it. Like, if I need to just be like the enhancement guy, for sure, I'll work it. If you want me at the world title picture, I'll fucking do it. If you just want me to just be an asshole and interrupt everyone's promo, Brian Ford is the guy you fucking call. Like, so the fact that mainstream allows me to do that gets a good general idea of who Brian Ford is as a character. Like I said, I see myself being there for a long time, and I look forward to telling all these stories with all these different talented writers. And it's just, if this is as good as it is, and I've only been there for, like, I believe less than 6 months, I can only imagine. I can only imagine what the future holds.
It's a good thing you're already heel, or else you would have shut him down, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It would have been the curse all over again. From now on, I'm going into every Fed heel, like, just off bat.
It's easier to turn face and, not shut anybody down.
Yeah, way easier.
So you talked about Carnage Wrestling being like your legacy Fed. You've been there forever. Mainstream Wrestling is the one you've been at for 6 months. What's another highlight Fed in your e-wrestling career?
Definitely IWA, the one I got my... It's technically the second ever Fed I was in, but it's the first one where B. Ford got his start. There was so much storytelling in that Fed. It was crazy. I think it was just another Fed head who kind of saw what I was going for and had so much belief in me. And this isn't to hype myself up, but I was the only guy on the entire roster who had captured basically everything except the main world title.
Nice.
B. Ford was the youngest to do it, and the first, I pride myself on this, was the first black character to do it. And it was acknowledged and it was noted, and literally,
that's awesome.
Again, I'm not hyping myself up because I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't really like being world champion sometimes.
Man, this is your show. Hype it up.
Okay. I'm the fucking shit. Nah, I'm playing. So the Fed head, his name was Hysteric. He told me, he literally sent me a message. He didn't have to, but he said, dude, I want you to have the world title so bad, but the only reason I'm not giving it to you is because you have literally held every other title, and it just would be a bad look. And I was like, thank you? ? So big ups to that Fed. It's closed now. I go there from time to time to see if anyone posts. Very rarely, but it happens. Someone posting like their random chat or whatever. And that's where I got my start and my love of this game. So it'll always have like a special place in my heart. And yeah, but definitely other than that, Carnage will always be like my home Fed. Like, it doesn't matter where I am, what I'm doing. Like, I will always check in Carnage. Even when I was like gone for a minute, I would just go in to talk to the people. Like, it'd be like, oh, you coming back? You bringing Ragnarok back? Brian Ford coming back? And I'd be like, no, I'm burnt out. I can't do this. But hey, I'll watch. Like, hey, I'll be there. I even offered to be like a manager role. I was like, I'll do that because I'd rather turn in a segment than an entire essay that has to be graded to win a match. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
It's Carnage just always has a special place in my heart. So that will always
be great. One of the best parts of this hobby is the community aspect. And it seems like you said you found your home. Yeah. At Carnage, and that's what it comes down to, is the people you're around.
And entirely, man. They sometimes can make or break both your character's career and like just you being an e-fedder in general. Like, you can't do this without some kind of like support system or friends or at least people you respect. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
you can't. It's like no one wants to work at a job where they hate all of their coworkers. Like no one wants. No,
some of us do. No, I'm kidding.
No,
I'm kidding.
No, it's not kidding. 'Cause sometimes, you have those bad eggs and you're just like, well, they're there. But again, it's really what you make out of it.
I mean, if you hate all your coworkers, maybe you're the bad egg.
True. That could also be. Maybe it's you, So, so if you're listening to this episode right now and you're like,
maybe it's you.
Maybe it's you. Because they're having.
Here's a wake up call.
Right. If everyone stops talking when you walk in the room, it's you. So, hey.
It's not out of respect.
Not at all.
Awesome, man. So what's next for Brian Ford? What's next for Harry Hampton?
Oh, man. All right. Well, for Brian Ford right now is the current mainstream television champion, which is suiting for his gimmick right now. Just had his second defense, I believe, against the former champion, Tedman Montgomery. So Brian's kind of high off of that. In mainstream, he's kind of slightly dealing, not full on dealing, but slightly dealing with a stable called The Franchise. And one of their members just kind of pissed Brian off. So in turn, as they were attacking one of Brian's nemesis in Jason Cash, I think it's Cash or Cache, I've never asked. But yeah.
I think it's Cash.
I think so too. So Jason Cash has been feuding with them forever now. And finally, at the last show, Brian Ford kind of had his back a little bit. Very much, Cash, don't get this wrong. I hate your fucking guts. But no one is going to make a name off of Brian Ford, all right? So let's just nip that in the bud. All right, if it means pairing myself with you and others, I guess. But, who's to say? I guess we'll just have to find out next show. But right now, Brian Ford is very much, fuck these guys. It's my time. And I guess Jason and the others can tag along. Brian Ford very much sees this as his fucking story. As he sees this as I'm the hero here. Whether or not that's true, which it probably isn't. But, don't tell him that because he'll have to worse for you. So that's pretty much what he's doing right now, at least as far as I can tell. Harry Hampton, on the other hand, has just won his first singles title in Carnage. His second singles title ever in Efed history. So the Chaos Championship, which is essentially the 24/7 championship as is defended.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's defended every show. At least it's defended in a match. Like no one can just roll up on me and pin me and it's just like, oh, I'm champ now. It's not that. But it is basically I have to defend it every show. And that's kind of a challenge because again, Carnage is a competitive role-playing fed. So I kind of have to be on my toes now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for Harry, this is definitely his redemption arc, because he had one opportunity to capture the world championship. He got distracted because his girlfriend at the time, who's also a commentator in Carnage, he kind of got in a little bit of trouble. He was focused on her and her well-being and got low-blowed and pinned, never to get a shot at the world championship again. Time went on. He found a tag team partner reluctantly in Isaiah Luck, and those two went on to become tag champions. But then Harry Hampton lost the title in his first defense and injured his leg and was very much out for almost a year. So his whole thing has just been he's watching people do what he loves from the sidelines. And he came back, got into it with a new rookie, Dominic Strife, who very much reminded Harry of himself at that age. And it got down to those two competing to become the first ever Chaos champion. And Harry's whole thing is, look, kid, I know you're trying to make a name for yourself, but literally I have to win this title. And like for myself and to prove that I can be the champion I know Carnage deserves. And he did so. And now his whole thing is he wants to get back up the ladder. He wants another shot at the world championship because lately everyone who's had the championship hasn't had the company's best interest at heart. And Harry is very much a man of the people. He calls himself the man of the house. And what better way to prove you're the man of the house than by winning the coveted world championship? So he's climbing up the ladder. He knows he has to start from somewhere, and being Chaos Champion is definitely a good starting point. So he's on his way back up. So,
and the first one at that.
Yeah, the first ever. So you can't ever take that away from him. Nope. Even if he loses his title tomorrow, he's still the first ever. So you can suck his.
Jericho 10 years later was still talking about first undisputed champion.
Right. And who's gonna shut him up about that? No one, because have they ever been the first ever undisputed champion? No, he was.
Never. No.
So there you go. So Harry is very much on that level. You can't tell him shit right now.
You mentioned briefly that you had run a Fed. How was that experience, and what did you learn as a Fed head?
That's the best way I could put it, dude. First of all, I've always wanted to run a Fed, and I might try again once, either I'm taking a break from Fedding or if I just stick to Angle Feds. So running my Fed, it was called Progress Wrestling, and essentially it was my take on a NXT. It was primarily for, newer up-and-coming talent to kind of hone their skills there and to get eyes from other companies. So that was very much a real thing I wanted. I wanted to showcase it to the Feds that I were following to be like, hey, these characters are on my show. I think they're dope. Maybe you want to take a look at them. So that was my whole goal because I just thought the idea of it was dope. Progress story-wise was run by Brian Ford and his father, Nick C4 Ford. So it was very much their baby. And from the Fedhead side of it, the first couple shows up to the first pay-per-view were a blast to write. It was dope seeing that people I didn't even know were joining and actively wanted to be a part of it. So, we got up to 20-something members, and I didn't even think we would get that far. So it was definitely a blessing and an amazing experience. It definitely, again, I was getting burnt out on that as well because it was me having to write every single match, update the cards. I had to input shit into the shows. Thankfully I had someone from Carnage, helping me with the graphic cards and stuff for wrestlers. But other than that, it was pretty much just me on my own. And at first it was cool, but when you have a role play that's due that same week as your show, and on top of that, you have to write a segment for your Angle Fed as well. And on top of that, Brian Ford was involved in a feud in Progress against a former friend too. So it was I have all these things I have to do. And it got to a point where shows were running late. The website I was using was fucking up, dude. Pro Boards. I hate Pro Boards. I'm not going to lie to you. Especially if you don't know what you're doing. It's the most frustrating fucking experience in your life because suddenly the graphics wouldn't appear or one or two would appear and others would be blank. And it's just I know to other people that wasn't really a factor because you're just there to read the matches anyway. But I'm such a person of everything has to be right. I want you to see your character in a portrait with a versus sign against another character in a portrait. I just love seeing shit like that. I want you
take pride in your product.
Right. If you have a Titantron type of thing, be a YouTube or whatever, I want that to be playing so people who are reading the show can click on that and shit. I love that shit. I think that shit is awesome. But Pro Boards wanted to be a bitch. So it was I couldn't fucking do it. And, I was just...
That's the subtitle of this episode. Pro Boards wanted to be a bitch.
Pro Boards wanted to be a bitch. You'll probably hear that a couple more times throughout this interview. But yeah, dude, it just got so much. And I also had personal real life issues in the way. And it was just like, I had to let everyone know, look, I'm closing it down. Thank you guys for, everything you've done. I do hope to open it again. I'm literally hoping next year I'll just find the energy and the time to just have it up and running. Hopefully get a couple more people on board to at least write matches. 'Cause if I can do that, then who knows? Progress could be right back up and we can just take up where we left off. That's the hope.
Well, good, man. I hope that works out for you. Hold on one sec. I got this big ass fucking truck passing right in front of my house. Son of a bitch.
Pro boards. I bet they're in that fucking truck. Fucking everything.
That Pro Boards truck coming through. Now, Brian was going to have to cut that out. Now he's got to keep it in. Oh, good shit. All right. So, shout out some of your best friends in the hobby. Who do you hang with? Who's your guys? Who's your gals? Whatever.
All right, here we go. First off, Robert Zodiac. That's my brother, dude. He actively, by the way, I also have a YouTube channel, called It's Gravy, and it is primarily, WWE 2K19 videos. I run a whole universe mode on there. I'm getting back into that. He actively watches and is my number one. Anytime it goes up, he'll always comment that was bullshit how so-and-so won, and this storyline is dope, and this is better than WWE's storyline about this. It's I love that dude. He's one of my best friends, both in real life now and in the eFed life. It's super dope. Another person is Silk. That's my dog, bro. It's funny because, I forget the Fed, but he had invited me, but he was under a different character, and I didn't know that character, his character Nemesis, I think it was.
Yep.
I didn't know Nemesis and Silk were the same person. He also did not know that Ragnarok and Brian Ford were the same person. So, he was Nemesis, I was Ragnarok. I joined his stable. I forget the stable. It was so long ago. But I joined the stable. I joined the Fed for a little one-off appearance or whatever. And we hit it off there immediately. And then Silk and Brian Ford started interacting with each other. And literally, we started, DMing each other, and we're blah, blah. And he was like, oh, what other characters do you play? I was like, oh, I also play Ragnarok. He was like, no fucking way. And he's like, I'm fucking Nemesis, bro. And I was like, what the fuck? It fucked my mind up a little bit that day. I was like, that's so random, because we had there was no way we would have known that, without talking. No. So that was crazy.
That's awesome. Love those kind of stories.
Yeah, absolutely. Another good friend, Chris Constantine Jr. I love just bouncing ideas off of him. He's an idea man for sure. He's a good friend. Brian Crucifix, my other dog. I love him. There's Kyra Johnson, who is, I call her mom in Carnage. She's literally the owner of the place. Her and her husband, her real life husband, started that Fed and have kept it going. And even though they did step away and step down and someone else took over, they still are just lovely people. And I know I can come to her first. She's the one that helped me out with my portraits for my Fed. And, I was like, hey, I'll pay you for this because this is a lot of work. And she literally was like, don't even worry about it. So, big ups to her.
Awesome.
Everyone in Carnage, especially from the time that I came in, we're all pretty much good friends. Will Prider, JC, Jack Michaels, so many people. And it's just great. And that's pretty, Cartier. I always say Cartier. And I know it's pronounced Cartier because it's supposed to be based off the actual thing. But every time I see her name, it's Cartier. And I just don't know why. and if she hears this, I'm so sorry, bro. I did not, it's just, I'm dumb. Just chalk it up. No, you know what? Fuck that. I'm not dumb. Pro Boards is dumb. So blame
Pro Boards. And their trucks.
Yeah, and their trucks. I was fucking shit up. But yeah, so those are just just a few. Rob is becoming a pretty good friend as well. You know, we talk from here and there, and like he's such an understanding guy, and I'm so glad that I have him as like a Fed head, because he's not a guy that like has an ego about him. And like I said, he's so not Vince McMahon style when he books or has like storylines, like very open. And I think as a Fed head, as a former Fed head, like that's something you have to be. You have to be open to your talent saying, hey, this is what I do. It's different than someone coming in your DM saying, hey, bitch, make me fucking world champion or I quit. Like, that's different. But versus, hey, I would really appreciate one match with the world champion. I think I have a good idea of how this can happen. I don't care whether or not I win. It's more of, I just want to wrestle this person. He's a person you can come to with that. Like, I would really like to face this guy. And he'll be like, well, I'll see what I have planned for them, and if it aligns, I'll let it happen. And there you go. So big ups to you, Rob.
I like Rob because he wanted to tell me something one time, but I think he didn't. He was too afraid to tell me, so he just kept on hinting around it.
Yeah.
He's almost too nice of a guy.
I will say that. There are times where, like, I forget what he said. I would have to go back and look at my messages, like, deep. But he said something, and I was like, I don't think Brian Ford would do that. And he was like, well, okay, I had just hoped, but what's your ideas? Like, what do you have in mind? And I felt like a piece of shit. I was like,
now you feel bad. I'm like, man, if that's the way you see my character.
Like, I was like, wait, no, Rob, if you think this is the way, then fuck it, I'll fucking do it, bro. Like, wait, don't be sad, no.
Oh.
So
Rob's a good guy.
Super good guy. Like, I don't care what anyone says about him. He's definitely a good guy. He has no reason to give me the spots I've been given. Like, so it's like, all right, I'm your world television champion now. Let's fucking go. Like, I got you, Rob. But yeah, those are just a few names, and I'm sure I'm making more friends as it goes on. Like, Brian Ford is interacting with more people, and in turn, I'm actually talking to the handlers and stuff and joking around. A lot of people I never thought I would talk to are talking to me right now, and it's kind of hilarious.
That's awesome. That's all you can hope for. I mean, you're bridging gaps and, you know, even people maybe you didn't get along with.
Exactly.
It's awesome. All right, man. Well, that's all I got. You good with you ready for the Discord questions?
Oh yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Okay. From the Evil Patriots fan, what's one thing you don't like about this hobby, and what do you like?
Okay. So the answer is kind of the same, but like, it's literally the same answer for both. I'll be honest, the community, because there's two sides of it.
Yep.
What I don't like is, I'm not going to name names, and it's one of those things where everyone kind of knows the situation already. So
names.
No, I'm not. I can't. I refuse. I refuse to be that guy. But I mean,
all
again,
right.
It's one of those things where, like, the minute people hear this, they'll know who it's about and what it's going on.
Well, I don't know it. I'm a journalist, so I got to try. Gotcha.
Well, I'm going to be pro boards in this situation and fuck it up for you.
All right, fucking bitch.
But, like, there's two sides of it. Like, the community can be very loving and accepting and also very toxic. And 100%. Right now, I'm seeing a lot more toxicness in the community. There's a lot of ganging up on people right now. And granted, I want this as a disclaimer so no one can twist my words. Some of these people that are being ganged up on, they definitely deserve that energy. But it's more of like, are you going to spend your entire e-fetting days hounding this person because of something they said or did? Like, are you wasting your energy on that? Because
are you enjoying the game because of you're doing that?
Right. Like, you're kind of just feeding into it and giving it more attention than it deserves. And it's also kind of like a lot of people are starting to stoop to that person's level. And that's the thing that kind of irks me. Like, I saw a comment and I was legit upset about this comment, but they were basically saying they wished that said person had went through with killing themselves. And that's where I kind of draw the line, because this is a hobby, dude. This is a game.
Yeah.
Like, we come on here to escape reality for the most part. A lot of us are dealing with situations that we cannot control. So the fact that there's something we kind of can control, which is e-fedding, like at least our characters and the way our characters move and act, like that's an escape for a lot of us. So to see like a place where I get on Twitter, I get on the Fed to get away from my problems or to forget about it, and to see that the very same things that I'm trying to get away from or that energy is still popping up, it kind of makes the game not as fun for me. And especially when people are blurring the lines of in character and out of character, that shit irks me. I'm not gonna lie. Because like,
I definitely agree with you.
Is your character saying this or are you saying this? Because there is a big difference. And even then, there are certain things your character should not say.
No character would say.
Right. It's just like, even if you're playing a straight up douchebag. And I take, like, okay, Zeb Coulter from WWE, his character and his gimmick was very much a racist. Like
absolutely. Yeah.
American, typical American, if you're not from here, get out of here type of character.
But did you think the Dutch Mantel was racist?
Like, a bit. Like, it's so crazy. Like how they can blur the line, like how he cannot actually say certain words, but you know what he means. And you're just like, you piece of shit, but I can't hate you all the way because you didn't say it. I know what you were thinking, though. Like, it's one of those things. Like, if you can play a character like that, by all means, be whatever. Like, there was even a character who was like this misogynistic, sexist guy that no one wanted to work for, because every time he was in a feud with a woman, it was very much like, you don't belong here. And I thought that shit was hilarious to me. And it's not because I don't think women should have like the same rights as men. It's not that.
No, but because it's a heel.
Here's this dude. This dude is a heel getting heat. If you are especially if you are a woman and your character is a woman and you're feuding with him, you are at that point the top babyface. Like, you have
100%,
nothing
100%.
but the ceiling. Yeah. Like, take this. But no, people.
And at the end of that angle, you should kick her. Go ahead.
Right. At the end of the angle, you win. Like, you have to win. A good Fed head
and
knows
kick him in the nuts.
Yeah, kick him in the nuts. And then he kicks you, and you no-sell it because you don't have any. Like, that's the perfect fucking spot. Like, I don't, but just going back to it, like, I just would wish people would divert their energies elsewhere or bettering their character instead of just constantly shitting on someone. And this person, like, apologizes a lot for their actions, and I get a lot of the time it falls on deaf ears because everyone's like, you're too far gone for forgiveness. And it's like, I get it. I feel it. Because this person has also said things that I, to this day, am not over. And I still never wish this dude death. You know what I mean? Like, I'd feel like I'd be a piece of shit if I walked up to him and said, hey, I wish you would give in to your negative thoughts. Like, that, to me, that's just like, come on, bro. At the end of the day, this is supposed to be a game and it's supposed to be for fun. You don't have to like someone. You don't have to tolerate them. But there is a block and a mute option on fucking Twitter, bro. Like, that thing does exist. So I pride myself on never really having any beef with anyone. If I do, it's unknown to me. So feel free to step up and tell me you fucking hate my guts. And I'll probably still send you a GIF of a smiley face. On the other hand, what I like about it is this community has a lot of people who are open and welcoming and warm. Like, I've made more friends online than I have, like, in real life. Like, high school, I talked to maybe, like, 2 people. I used to be friends with, like, the entire fucking freshman class. And I talked to 2 people, dude. Like, so it's just, like, this game has so many, like, you make friendships and you end up finding out shit about people, or you get introduced to other things. Like, now I play fucking PS4 with some of these guys. Like, it's fucking sick.
Right.
So it's like shit that I never would have done before unless I had stepped into e-fedding. So it's just, the community can be very fucking toxic, like pro boards, or they can be like a straight up blessing. So that I like both. I dislike and like the community. is the short answer.
I like it. Quite a dissertation.
Yeah.
What's been your favorite match you've seen your characters in?
Okay. Brian Ford's greatest match to this day is against. Okay, no, there's two. There's two now. But the first and the one that always popped in my head is Brian Ford versus JC in Carnage Wrestling. This was during Brian Ford. Brian Ford was very much the top heel of Carnage. He was like, I'm the face of this company. You just don't know it yet. I'm the guy everyone comes to see. I'm the guy if you want to make a name for yourself in this company or in this business, you have to face. That was very much Brian Ford's mantra. And he was feuding with JC, who is like a legend in other feds. Like his character literally is like, you think of the championship, you think of JC, like his name pops up. Brian Ford was getting under JC's skin because he despised everything JC stood for. He was like, you're just an old guy who honestly can't carry this company to the heights that a younger, fresher face like myself can. It very much got personal to the point where Brian Ford punt kicked JC's girlfriend's head off at a show. Like it was, and then did the same to him the following show. So it eventually it was like, you know what? Fuck this. Brian, I want you. I don't give a fuck what the stipulation is. I just need a match with you. So Brian Ford very much was like, all right, let's have a match where there's no excuse for if I lose or if you lose. We are very much doing an Iron Cell match. So basically Hell in the Cell. And those two went to war. That is Brian Ford's probably first time going so extreme in a match. And Brian Ford lost, but the greatest part of that story of Brian Ford losing is the reason Brian Ford lost was because of Brian Ford. He got cocky. He could have put JC away after hitting his finish. Very much was like, no, fuck this. I want him to just relish this moment. And he fucked himself up. JC got the win. And Brian Ford, to this day will say, I beat myself. And that's very much like such a douchebag thing. You know what I mean? Like you can't even admit when someone beat you in a game. You literally are just saying, nah, the only reason I lost was because I got in my own way. Which to an extent is true, but it's also like, dude, just admit, like, he was the better man.
I beat you, yeah.
Brian Ford will never, to this day, like, JC, I'm literally talking to you at this point right now. I will never admit defeat to you. Fuck you. But the other match was Brian Ford versus Mariano Fernandez in Mainstream. It was very much winner gets both titles. And I was like, okay, this is extreme. I had never faced Mariano before. We had never even had like a segment together or anything. I would always see his posts on Twitter. I love his character, and I had always wanted to wrestle him. And then I just looked at the boards, and the match card was Brian Ford versus Mariano, and I was like, oh, okay. And then and then I watched the show, and it was Rob coming out saying, hey, you're going to face Mariano, but it's going to be for both titles since you think you're top shit. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a thing now. And just like that match, I just loved working with him. We didn't even do a segment together, but just knowing I was going to have a match with him. And Mainstream is such a dope place because you get to submit like sequences for your characters. So you very much get to dictate what your character does. If you want to see a spot, you can write it out and it will be in the show. So I wrote so many spots that I just thought were epic. And once you see your spots and your opponent's spots and how, Rob just ties it all together, definitely a highlight of my career so far. My favorite match to date. So there's that. And for Harry Hampton, I gotta say the winning the Chaos Championship is my favorite match of his because the story was dope, because it's very much Harry faced against someone who is just like him, only younger, and whose only gripe is he just wants to prove himself. He wants a shot. He wants that contract to be a part of the roster. Harry cannot lose this because if he loses, he basically says, I can't hang with anyone anymore. So it was just, I don't know. The story was just great. I love it. Those are my favorite matches to this day.
Yeah, the accomplishment with Harry Hampton, obviously it has more oomph or meaning to you.
Yeah, definitely. Like this, like I said, this is his redemption arc right now, and I'm just having fun with it. I've gotten better as a writer. I'm starting to see it now, and a lot of other people are starting to see it. And this is just, I don't know. I just love everything about this going on right now.
At MDG wants to know, what's one story you were a part of that you'd rather soon forget?
I had read this question before, and the minute I read it, I got mad because this is all right. So it was part of another Fed similar to the ones I had been accustomed to before getting into the actual angled Feds. It was called Legion of Warriors.
Okay.
And the Fed head would be anal if you ever called it LOW or low. Like, he was like, no, it's Legion of Warriors. And I'd be like, okay, whatever you say, man. So Ragnarok was in there and had captured their mid-card title, the Legion of Warriors title. Ragnarok was champion for like 3 months. Okay, keep this in mind. All right, 3 months as champion. So then I had also brought Harry Hampton into Legion of Warriors, just because they were like, oh, you can have like up to 3 characters as long as we know who you are. I was like, for sure. Another key fact, please note, the Fed head and every single person on that roster knew I was playing Ragnarok and Harry Hampton. That is a key.
Okay.
That's a key. All right. Just, yeah. There is a number 1 contenders match for the Legion of Warriors title, which Ragnarok is holding. In this match is Harry Hampton. I forget his name. Vaughn. His name was Vaughn. He was like a SWAT team member gimmick. I don't know. And 2 other jabronis. Whatever. Harry Hampton wins number 1 contenders match. Okay. Question mark. It's like, okay, all right. So it's very much, the pay-per-view will be Ragnarok versus Harry Hampton. Again, 2 characters that I control and everyone is aware I control. So I hit up the Fed head. I was like, so how do you want to do this? Obviously Ragnarok is retaining, because that would be stupid if you gave the title to Hampton. Like, so how do you want to play this? He was like, I don't really know right now, but we'll figure it out. I was like, okay. He's like, hey, I need you to get, the feud going with Harry Hampton and Ragnarok. I'm just like, I guess. So I just do the generic Harry Hampton is being stalked by Ragnarok every chance he gets, like at his house, in his hotel, at a subway, like he's getting fucking stalked. The match happens. It's a beautifully written match. Like, I think it was a good match. Harry Hampton wins. Harry Hampton becomes the new Legion of Warriors champion. Instantly, I sent him a message. What the fuck? Because I literally was like, what was the point of having my character drop the title to my other character? I don't, like, Ragnarok should have retained and should have defended it the next time against someone else. We were in a group chat, and I made it very clear I did not like this. Other people were like, yeah, why did you have Brian drop his title to himself? And the Fed had literally said, and I quote, I didn't think anyone else deserved it. And I was like, all right. Shortly after that, the Fed closed down because people started jumping ship, and people made it very clear they knew it. They had no ill will towards me because, of course, I didn't control that aspect. But I was just like, in that situation, you just have the already champion retain because he kept Harry Hampton champion for 3 other months. So essentially, I was the mid-card title holder for 6 months, just as 2 different...
Between 2 characters.
It was the dumbest storyline I had ever been a part of, and I hate every aspect of it because I feel like a few of them thought it was like favoritism, and I would send them messages saying, no, I think it's stupid too. I'm sorry. Please take this title from me. I will give it to you. I don't want it anymore. So yeah, that's probably the dumbest fucking story I've ever been forced to be a part of.
At Gabriel, Ohio, push 1, fire 1, erase 1. Ric Flair, Undertaker, Hulk Hogan. And why?
Okay. Push Undertaker, for sure. And fire Flair and hope he comes back. And erase Hulk Hogan. First of all, Undertaker is Undertaker. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. He is a legend. I need him on my roster at all times.
And his real name is Undertaker, so
right.
Why wouldn't you want that guy?
Right. He's real. He's real as fuck. So
yeah.
I don't want that energy coming after me by firing him. No, thank you. Flair, great worker, amazing. But just like you're not Undertaker. Like I would fire him and hope like he like does what everyone else does and becomes extremely successful in Japan so I could hire him back again. And Hulk Hogan, I don't like Hulk Hogan. He's, a little bit of a racist, I guess, is the nicest way of putting it. And Hulk Hogan's character has never done anything for me. And Undertaker is probably to me what Hulk Hogan is to a lot of other people. So
yeah, it wasn't your generation, and then he had that whole scandal, so I get it.
Right, like he body slammed Andre the Giant. That was cool. Like I cool. Other than that, I never understood punching a man and watching him increase strength. Just after the first one or the second one, definitely after the second one, I'm not punching you anymore because I'm just making you stronger. Where is my gun? Like that's at that point, it's no, I can't fight you. But yeah, Hulk Hogan is not all that to me. The other two I hold to much higher regard.
Absolutely. At Jason Reeves, Stalker, best gimmick match participated in or created?
Like for my characters, or just like when he said created, is that like of all time?
Well, either or. No. I just think he means that you participated in. So either your characters or that you invented. But what's the best gimmick match that you've been a part of?
Harry Hamden was part of a what was it? It was a Christmas. They do it every year. It's Terminal Snowball, and it's Christmas themed. And he was in a match where the first time he was in it, it was basically there were kendo sticks wrapped up in gifts, and you took down a box, you open it up, kendo stick, whack somebody. The second time he was in the match, it was a lot more. It was 12 gifts of Christmas match. It was very much each box had something. There were thumbtacks in one. There was a candy cane in another. There was literally like a stuffed teddy bear in one, and you just utilized it as a weapon. That's hilarious. I guess I haven't been in too many like gimmick matches other than that. Brian Ford used to be like specialized in like ladder matches. So anytime there was a ladder match, I always made sure that he did something fucking crazy off of the top of the ladder. That's just, but that's pretty much it.
I mean, the Christmas match is very gimmicky, so that's a good answer.
Yeah, love it.
All right, rapid fire from Rick. You ready? Question 1, is your mom hot?
No. She's cold right now.
Question 2, is she single?
Question mark. I'll have to ask her because sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no. Next.
Question 3, what's your favorite Dungeons and Dragons character class?
Rogue all the way.
Nice. Question 4, if you could travel back in time and convince real-life bookers to change one storyline in history, which would you choose and how would you change it?
I would make sure that Brock Lesnar never did what he did to Kofi Kingston.
Oh, that's a good one.
At all. No, that should. If you're gonna give him the fucking title, at least give Kofi a match with Brock Lesnar. Don't
Make it a nice match. Yeah,
like something. Like get.
they could have done a lot of fun stuff.
Kofi could have hit 3 fucking SOSs and Trouble in Paradises and still lost, and I would have thought that was better than anything they fucking came up with.
I agree, 100%. He got robbed.
Yeah.
Question 5: have you checked out eWrestling Tees yet?
No, but I was like kind of snooping on Discord and was seeing people talk about it, so I might have to do that right after this call.
There you go, efedtees.com. How about the Atomic Dropcast?
Never heard of it. So
that is Mikey's other podcast, myself and Brian. We do a podcast watching when you got started, old 97, 98 Raws and SmackDowns and talking shit about it.
Nice. Oh, I have to check that out too.
He pitches my ads every show. At Jason Reeves Stalker, he's back. Any characters you regret working with? If so, why? Other than yourself.
Well, there goes that answer. Characters I regretted working with, that's kind of a hard one. I don't really
other than the He Who Must Not Be Named.
Yeah, that one was not okay. But not necessarily. It's not I regret working with them, but I wish like we had done a lot more, I guess. So not an answer to your question, but kind of an answer to your question. Chris Constantine Jr. and we wanted a feud, and I wanted that feud to be like extensive, and it was. Don't get me wrong, it was good. The pacing of it was cool, but I would have liked if we had like continued it a little bit further. But other than that, I don't really have regrets of working with anyone. There's people I wish I had gotten to work with for sure, but other than that, nah.
It's a positive answer.
Yeah.
What are the strengths of a babyface?
Straight up sympathy. Like you get like depending on who you're faced with, there's no way you don't get cheered. Like it's different if you're paired with someone who's like the fucking top of the company. But I mean, you get sympathy, you get the support of the fans, you probably sell more merch. Like, I don't know. It's just, look, I'm not gonna lie to you, being baby, it's fucking shit. I hate it. Like, I'm not gonna.
It's more work, but it's also more rewarding when you win the big match.
Right. It's like it's way easier to be heel because all you have to do is be a piece of shit. Like you can,
and we're all naturally pieces of shit.
Exactly.
So
like I can literally go on Twitter right now and just type "I hate puppies" and instantly I will be like the fucking heel of the century. Like it's So being babyface, if you can actually do it and pull it off, like thankfully I have Harry Hampton who's a face right now. Like it is rewarding when you get that big victory or you get one up on your feud. So I will say the advantage of being a babyface is there's more rewards to it if you pull it off right. Because being a heel, it is rewarding, but it's easier to achieve things. Like, it's not uncommon if every company right now has a heel as their, like, world champion right now because it's that fucking easy. You just have to be hated. But I'm not gonna say it's easy either. You have to really try to be fucking that much of a piece of shit where everyone hates you. But
I just wanted you to know that I just tweeted out "I hate puppies" in quotes, and I put a future guest, and I want to see how much heat it gets. I didn't name you, but it'll be a fun little experiment.
I'll be checking it out, and I'll see the.
It's already been liked.
See, it's already starting. They're gonna be like, "Who the fuck hates puppies?" Kick it out of all of your feds. Nah, fuck that. And then here comes Brian Ford just peeking his head around the corner, like, well, not all puppies.
Not them all, yeah. No, that's good, man. I definitely, it's easier to be a heel. Babyface is very rewarding if you can do it well, and not a lot of people can do it well. So
yeah, like even my trainers have said, if you're a face, just fucking sell everything. Like literally, a babyface's job is to sell and to make everyone feel for them and feel for their cause. If I'm going up against a behemoth. I'm supposed to get the utter living shit kicked out of me. I'm supposed to be the guy that you check on after the match and you genuinely ask, "Hey, are you okay?"
Hey, are you okay?
like that is your job as a babyface. And unfortunately, the other thing is a lot of people don't know how to be a proper babyface. Everyone wants to be like the tweener or the
Yes, Stone Cold, yeah.
Yeah, everyone wants to be the face that's a badass. But I take
That's
pride
not a real
in
face.
selling like the face who's reluctant to face the 300-pound man. Like I even take pleasure in being the heel who's a baby shit heel. Like I love writing segments of like a character that is way more menacing than me, and Brian Forge is like talking his shit while also proceeding to get the fuck out of Dodge. Like like that. It's all about selling, no matter what you are. But being a face, definitely just sell everything. Like, don't always be the guy who's like, I can take on the world and I'm better. Like, you should have that confidence, but you should also be the guy who realizes that one little fuck up could be the end of your momentum and your career. So you should be concerned.
100%.
Like, why would you not? Who the fuck looks Undertaker in the eye and is like, yeah, I could take you? No one. Like, even
No
people
one.
who do it, they have a little bit of fear in them, or they make themselves seem smaller. You know what I mean?
They say that, and then they get in the ring and they cower or they run from him.
Right.
So
Like, that's what it takes. So if you're a face, it's okay to it's okay. You don't have to be Rambo, you know? You can just be like Sarah from whatever movie you know Michael Cera from. It's okay.
it's okay.
He's likable. We like him. What we don't like is
Capacity.
Pro Boards. Oh, okay.
No, fuck Pro Boards.
Yeah,
At Capacity, summarize what you like about e-fetting in 6 words max.
Sometimes you may get laid twice. There you go.
Make an elevator pitch for e-feds.
All right, everyone in the first of all, I would hit the emergency fucking stop button.
So now you got 5 minutes instead of 30 seconds.
So that's the first move. It's all right. You guys ever wanted to participate in a world where everyone's sweaty and wearing very little clothing, and sometimes you climb up ladders and jump off of them and put your sweaty body against another body for some guy in a zebra sweater to count to 3 and raise your hand?
Boy, do I.
Well, do I have the thing for you? E-fetting.
Perfect.
Order
I'm in.
now, get 1 win 3. Like, I don't know.
That's usually how it goes. Yeah, join my Fed. I'll make sure you're a champion.
Again, you'll at least get 1 win in my Fed. That's at least eventually.
Here come the joke questions. You ready?
Oh, God.
At Ravage, do you think Rick's deep interest in your mother is psychologically a cry for help?
No. Well, yes and no. I think Rick just needs a little love. Perhaps he's seeking it in an older woman. Maybe he doesn't have that great of a relationship with his own mother, so he looks for validation in other people's mothers. Like, I don't know if he thinks my mom is going to bake him cookies and, like, sing him to sleep, because I got that maybe like 1 time during my childhood. And so, I don't know. But if you do need help, there are numbers you can call.
There are, and we will direct you to them, Rick. Just ask for help.
Yeah, it's just...
Question 2, have you envisioned where your characters are going, and if so, have they been successful in that vision?
Brian Ford, for sure. I've always envisioned him having, like, this pedigree and this resume of, I've done this. And so far, he has very much done this. Like, he's been a world champion. He's captured multiple titles. He's had some great matches. He's matured. As much as a lot of other people in character will say he's very immature, he has matured both as like a businessman and as a wrestler. So very much any goal I have set for Brian Ford to achieve, he's either done it or he's on his way to doing it. Like, I very much would love Brian Ford to be held up in the same regard as a lot of other characters, where you mention their name and at least a couple of people are like, I know who the fuck that is. Fuck that guy. Like, I want to be that. Like, your character literally is like, I fucking hate Brian Ford because he's so good at what he does. Like, I want it to be that. Harry Hampton is very much on his way of doing that as well. But he's still got a long way to go. So, yeah.
Question 3, do you remember love?
Everyone's looking for it, so.
Everyone's looking for love. It's nice to come back to the first question where you said Rick was looking for love.
See, Rick is just looking for love. That's really it at the end of the day.
Nice circle back.
There you go.
Do you know of any poorly spoken feds? And if so, can you DM me?
Oh my god. Yeah, there's one off the top of my head. Not.
What's the let's do this. If you're a game, what's the worst fed you've been a part of?
Here we go. This is where like bridges burn. Okay, there's the worst fed I think I've been a part of was alright. There's a couple. So the first one is the first ever fed I was in. It was called The One. It was very much just this developmental brand. And Brian Ford got nothing there. Like, I got 2 matches in the span of like 4 months. So it was just like, I had to leave. So that's definitely at the bottom. Legion of Warriors, as if you've been staying tuned for as long as this, like
LOW.
Yeah, don't say that, because who knows? The place might get. Wait, it is shut down. So fuck that. That, and I mean, I don't want this taken the wrong way, but also like I wasn't really feeling myself when I was part of Kings Road. That's not to shit on the Fed at all. It's not. Like, the Fed is solid. It's got some great workers. Again, some of my best friends I met through there as I transferred over to mainstream. I just feel like it was one of those places where the ideas just weren't flowing with me. And whatever I was given, I just didn't really like. I appreciated everything that was going on over there. And I appreciate, I hope the bridges and burn shit I ever, pop back over there. But just at the time, I'll just say it like that. At the time, it probably wasn't the best place for me to be.
Just wasn't a good fit. Not a bad fit, yeah, just not a good fit.
Yeah, it's just not a good fit for me at the time. And that's pretty much it.
Finally, from Ravage, who is your favorite Spice Girl and why is it Posh Spice?
Because of the name. Like, you imagine just like coming home and your boys are at your door and they're like, hey, what happened? And you're like, hey, I just smashed. And they're like, oh, who'd you smash? And you're like, Posh Spice. Like, that's like something you say to your boys, like, and you say it proudly.
Easily posh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Matt Loaf, if oranges are called oranges, then why aren't lemons called yellows?
Well, you see, Matt, it all started with the first ever strawberry. The color of the strawberry was red, and red is also associated with anger. And did you know that orange is a subform of red? It probably is not, but that's what I'm saying. Until you scientifically prove me otherwise, I will stick with that. So, what was the question?
It was a cold evening in 1612.
It was 5:32 p.m. and I had just finished drinking lemonade, and look, I don't fucking know, all right? I just don't. I'm not saying this.
At Deacon Fuzz of the Third Order, if you could delete one thing from e-fedding in general, what would it be? Not people who are playing pieces of shit. I mean genuine pieces of shit, like who are trying to ruin this game for other people. Piece of shit people.
Yeah, piece of
handlers.
Yeah, you blank, 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 not saying your name.
You pro board handlers.
Yeah, and pro board and.
Sorry, pro board handlers. I don't mean you guys.
Really. Nah, it's not your fault. It's just the thing you use's fault. That's all. Fuck you, pro boards. And I hate the fact that I probably will have to use pro boards again when I start my Fed up. But until that day, fuck you, pro boards. I'm not paying anything. Bastards.
From Jay, if you were to make the perfect RP and angle hybrid, how would that look and work?
It's fucking fine though, bro. My whole thing when I started running a Fed was just like, I want active people. I will push the fuck out of you if you are selling everything that is happening and if you are submitting segments. Because that was my whole thing. I didn't give a fuck if you promoted the match on Twitter, because I know a lot of places care about that. Like, promote your match. But for me, it was more of like, that's a part of it, but also because the segments, you gotta think of it this way. Your segments are what average audience would actually be seeing on screen.
Yeah.
If your character is not present, why would you become world champion? You know? And I see that a lot of times where like a guy becomes world champion that doesn't submit any like segments.
He just role plays. He's a good role player.
Right. And it's just like, that's great, but where is your character among all of this? You know? Like, why does he just show up, defend the title, wins the title, and then goes about his business, doesn't address anything? And sometimes his opponent is doing all these like segments and like, you know, shit like that. And then it's just, I don't know. That's what your Intercontinental title is for. That's what your second tier title is for, is for the pure wrestler, is for the pure writer. But if you're going to entertain, you're going to make character development, and you're going to sell the results, that's when you get into the world title picture, because you're encompassing the entire world of the EFED. Exactly. And that's when you do the whole 9 yards. Like, you promote the matches, you put in the sequences and the segments, you
give feedback.
You give feedback. You actively ask your opponent or even the Fed head, hey, what can we do to elevate this story? Like the minute Ford if ever again becomes a world champion, best believe I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that the story is being told to the highest of its ability. Like, we're gonna go the full night. If I have to sell being in a fucking chicken suit for half of the show, I'll fucking do it if it means we're legitimizing the title and we're legitimizing the story. So that's fair enough. That's how I would operate if I were running that kind of a Fed. It would very much be, how involved is your character in terms of screen time? Because otherwise, I'm just putting you in dark matches if we don't see you anyway. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
100%.
Yeah.
From Deacon Fuzz of the Third Order, do you believe that Mikey Unlikely and his cousin Brian Likely are the saviors of the EFED community? You had to be active in chat today.
I kind of wish I was, because now my context. But I mean, like, the thing you're doing, like, with this whole the podcast is very much what I was going, like, literally, this is also why I was excited to be a Fed head, because I was going to do, like, a little podcast thing with another guy, and we were just going to hype up the matches. We were going to talk about the storylines. We were going to talk about, you know, characters. It was very much going to be like a talking smack type of thing, where we actively are selling the events and what's going on. There'd be, like, a power ranking, like, all of that. So the fact that you're doing even just like this podcast where you talk to like the handlers and get an idea of like their characters, and maybe people end up like following or liking the handlers that come on the show and end up like befriending them, and that's how you make connections. And hell, who knows? A Fed might come to me after this fucking interview and be like, "Hey, you think Brian Ford could make an appearance in our tournament or some shit?" Like something like that. The fact that
Or someone could say, hey, I heard about Mainstream on your interview. It sounds cool. Can I join?
Right. Or even better yet, someone comes in my DM and is like, yeah, fuck pro boards. Like, the fact that this is a thing, it's so dope. And like, when I had first heard the show, that's why I had hit you up. And I was like, I would love to be a part of this, because this is stuff I feel like the community kind of needs. Because it's relaxing. It's like you're just talking shit about your characters, about EFED in general. You're just kicking back. You know what I mean? And if a lot more people were doing stuff like this, I feel like the community would be a lot more healthier. But
it is good, man. It's better than people think it is. The EFEDing is more active than people think it is. It's not dying. It's very, very healthy right now. And I'm enjoying doing the podcast. I'm enjoying talking to handlers like you and getting to know you. You know, I didn't know you from Adam before this interview, and now I feel like I've made a buddy, and we get to talk after this and have fun, even though you hate puppies.
Exactly. Whoa, hey. I'm just getting heat, man. I just want the heat.
No, it's good stuff though, and I appreciate you taking the time. And we got one more question from Jay. What's the worst Fed name you were a part of?
Legion of Warriors, because I can't. Because I can't call it LOW or low. Like I legit got attacked in a message saying, "Hey, it's Legion of Warriors. It's not low. It's not LOW. Say the full name." I'm just like, you know how many times I'm gonna have, like, how many times I just wanted to be like low just to get a reaction out of them,
just to be pissed, yeah,
just to be petty. So that's probably the worst name I've been a part of because I couldn't abbreviate it.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, man, I that's awesome. And then, hey, just because I have a podcast doesn't mean everybody else can't have a podcast too. So do your thing, get in a Fed, have a podcast, and have fun.
Yeah, man.
When I first started this, for some reason, I had people asking me, "Hey, man, can I do a podcast too?" I don't care.
Please, sir, do I have your permission to start a podcast? like you are the podcast god, apparently. I guess.
I guess just in eFeds, but no. So many Feds have their own individual like show review podcasts or community podcasts. I think that stuff's so cool. I love the audio visual aspect. People are doing Zoom meetings now with handlers. I think this shit's so awesome, and I hope we can just keep building on it.
That's super dope. I definitely would love to see even more of that as the years go on. Like that should be a staple, honestly, in eFedding.
100%.
Like, okay, the show was great, but let's talk about it. Like, I would love a podcast that actively would talk about the show that had happened prior. I think that's something. I think I've seen it done before, but
it's out there, man.
Yeah,
there are Feds out there who do it on a weekly or bi-weekly basis.
Like I might say fuck it and do it myself, like, at this point.
Well, awesome, man. Hey, before I let you go, anything else you want to plug, promote, hit the links, Twitter, all that stuff?
Other than you should check out my YouTube channel. It's gravy if you like WWE2K, or even if you don't, I mean, just fucking follow it, I guess.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's gravy, ITSGRAAVYY. Yes, I know, it's a lot, but that's it. And if you haven't been a part of mainstream or you want to know more about it, I definitely suggest you hit them up. If you want real competitive role playing, Carnage is definitely the place for you as well. So, and if you want your podcast fixed, you should definitely join the wave of getting on the eFed podcast. So, do I get like royalties for plugging you in on your own show, or like how's that?
No, but I do appreciate it very much.
Fuck, this is Pro Boards all over again. All right,
fucking Pro Boards. We're back, backing up the truck. Beep beep. Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us, Brian. I really appreciate you taking the time. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, definitely had a lot of fun.
Everybody, that was a lot of fun. Interesting to get to know Brian, his journey, and how he got to where he is today. Thank you so much for listening in for another edition of the eFed podcast. Please, please, please check out all of our sponsors. Again, they are the lifeblood of the show, the Patreon, the eFed podcast, the eFed teas. You guys have gotten enough shilling today. I'm going to cut that out now. So, for Brian, I'm Mikey. Thanks so much for listening to the eFed podcast, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real.
Network, presented commercial free on Patreon.